So, Assalamu alaikum, my dear young participants. Uh, Today we'll speak about some of the issues that you youngsters might be facing when living in the West, and also some of my suggestions with regard to your own upbringing and your interaction with the Western community there. I'm pretty sure that all of you are enjoying your stay and your interaction with your class fellows and your schoolmates. And of course, there might be some things that might be bothering you. And one of the reasons is that our Desi parents generally have a different approach towards a number of problems that our youth face today. So I would like to discuss some of the things that that do come up in conversation between youngsters themselves, and also some of the other issues that might be called taboo issues, and which you might not discuss very openly or very freely, but I think that there are issues that need to be addressed. The first thing that I'd like to talk to you about and discuss with you about is that each human being, each person, each one of you has been blessed with a number of talents and aptitudes and inner potentials that need to be realized at a very early age. And if it hasn't been done already, then there are aptitude tests available. We have already developed some at Al-Mawrid as well, and other institutes have also done some of these aptitude tests, which help all of you in finding out what best you can do in life. I think that one of the most important things that a youngster must think about always is that he or she should set himself or herself a mission in life, a target in life, a purpose in life, an objective in life, and this should be commensurate. This should be in line with the aptitude and the talents that you have. And such questionnaires that we have developed and other aptitude tests help you in finding your own self. I'm sure you must have heard about the famous philosopher Socrates. Now he is reported to have said a beautiful saying, and it's just two words, but it speaks volumes and has depths that are hitherto unfathomable. He once said, "Know thyself," which means that you must know deeply who you are, what you can do, what are your talents, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, how you can benefit from others, and how you can give benefit to others. So your strengths, your weaknesses, your strong points, everything needs to be estimated, judged, and come to the fore at a very early age. Now, I know that all of you are above 15, but as I said, it's never too late. Even at this age, this SWOT analysis, as I call it, is always very helpful in finding out your own personality. Your own personality, your own inner aptitude is of paramount importance, because that will what is going to give you direction in your future life. And you might already know your personality trends through some of the hobbies that you might be having. They are one indication of your passion, of your inner potential. But as I said, specialized tests and specialized programs have been developed in which you can find out about your own inner personality, about your own inner potential. And this is my first request to you, that please discover your inner potential. Discover who you are. Discover what you can do. Discover how you can contribute to society. This is something which can be done, and it has to be done at this age, because already being young adults, you'll find out that if you are able to harness your energies, if you're able to gauge and bring together your potentials, you inshallah are going to achieve something really worthwhile. And when you leave this world, you'll be a person who people would remember because of what you contributed to your society. So the first request to you, my dear young adults, is that find out who you are, and don't take this as a very casual thing. Go deep into it. And as I said, some of the tests and some of the quizzes that we have developed will inshallah help you in finding out your own self. The second request, or the second issue that I'd like to discuss today, is that you have to become a dependable and responsible individual in life. This is one of the qualities of leadership. This is one of the facets of a personality who can be depended upon. You have to become responsible individuals. People should able to depend on you. If they give you a task, or if you yourself set a task for your own self, then you are able to deliver, you are able to meet the target in time. So the second request is that you have to become responsible individuals. And there are a couple of things that might help you in this regard. For example, you can take up some responsibility practically. You can help your parents, help you out in various chores. So by taking responsibility of certain things, you can train yourself to become responsible. Another tip in this regard is that if you have a pet, start caring for him or that pet as much as you can, and that'll of course contribute in making you a responsible person, because now you're going to care for a life. You're going to look after that pet. It could be a dog, it could be a cat, it could be anything. So looking after a pet makes you a dependent, responsible individual as well. And another thing is that you can also, if you are able to, you can grow seeds and plants in your own garden and then look after them, attend to them, attend to their needs. And similarly, another thing that can help in this regard, making you more responsible individuals, is that you take up some voluntary task. You can go to any place, an orphanage, a charity home, in which you can offer your weekly services if possible, because that's what's going to make you a contributing individual and a responsible individual. So my second request is that in order to develop the trait of responsibility, or if you already have it, to sharpen that trait of responsibility, you must do certain tasks, you must take certain responsibilities. And the best way is that you can ask your teachers, you can ask your parents, you can ask other people who are responsible for you to give you certain responsibilities, and then you monitor your responsibilities, and then you are able to deliver those responsibilities and meet the targets that you set for yourself. The third request, my dear young adults, that I'd like to make is that you must make the best use of time. Now, time is one of the greatest gifts of God. Please realize that you must make a timetable of your life. You must set yourself various priorities in life and always try to attend to them. You must know what you're going to do in the morning, what you're going to do in the afternoon, what you're going to do in the evening. In fact, if you can chalk out your whole program for the week, this will put you in perspective. Procrastination, wasting time, especially in the age that you are in, it might not be very problematic for you. It might not be very unproductive for you. But believe you me, this is the time and this is the age. If you are able to organize your life, if you can make the best of the time that you have in life, if you can, if I may say, take charge of each minute, each second, and plan your life that you're going to do something or the other in the time that you have, then you'll become contributing individuals. You will become a person who is thoroughly productive, who's not going to waste any time. Of course, there's a time for studies, there's a time for going to bed, there's a time for entertainment, there's a time for everything. But there should be no vacant time. And if there is to be a vacant time, it should be going to reflection, to deliberation, to deep thinking. So instead of killing time, instead of wasting time, plan your time. As they say, time and tide, no man abide. Time does not wait for anyone. So one of the greatest assets is time. And a very famous scholar once gave an example of time. He said that look at this ice, this huge block of ice that's in front of you. The example of this block of ice is like time, because it's slowly and slowly melting away. And one day it'll totally melt away, and that will be the end of our life. So before that happens, we are like a block of ice. Each moment is taking us away from this life and bring us closer to the next life. So capitalize on this life. Do as much as you can. Do not waste time. Do not waste time. So this is my third request. Just to recapitulate, my first request was to know yourselves. Know yourselves deeply. Set yourself a target and a mission in life. My second request was to you that you should become responsible individuals, individuals who can be depended upon, individuals who can lead the world. And one of the most premier qualities of a leader is that he's a responsible person or she's a responsible person. And the third thing in line is that you must organize your lives. You must not waste time. You must set yourself a timetable. My fourth request, my dear young adults, to you is that it is of paramount importance that you give importance to the calls of your conscience. Now, the conscience of a person which is found within him is his greatest asset towards what is right and what is wrong. You don't need to go to any person to tell you what is right and what is wrong, what is morally right and what is morally wrong. It is an alarm inside of you. It's a signal found inside of you. It's a benchmark. It's a barometer. It tells you, it blinks when you do something wrong. It also blinks when you do something right. And we know from scriptures and from the Quran that the awareness of good and evil is found within ourselves. And the Quran says, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا, which means that God has inspired the awareness of good and evil in our own nature, in our own conscience. And we must be people who lend their ears to the calls of their conscience. We should not lull our conscience to sleep. On the contrary, we should decide what is right and what is wrong in the light of what our conscience tells us. And once, when a person asked the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may peace be upon him, he said that how would we know that we are committing a sin or we are doing something wrong? And his answer was, ma haka fi sadrik, which means whenever you feel something bad in your heart, whenever you feel compunction in your heart, it means that you're doing something wrong. And the other thing that he said is, وَكَرِهْتَ أَن يُطَّلَ عَلَيْهِ النَّاسِ, that you would not like to disclose what you do or what you did to other people. Of course, we would like to hide our evils and sins. So this is the second benchmark that he told us, that the first benchmark was that you feel something bad in the heart, you feel guilty in the heart. And the second benchmark that he told us was that you would not like to disclose this to other people. So these are the two things which are found innately. You don't need to go to a mufti, you don't need to go to a clergyman, you don't need to go to any person. As long as your conscience is alive, kicking and vibrant, just lend your ear to what your conscience says. And as I said, if you lead your life in accordance with your conscience, if you lead your life in accordance with what your conscience says, you'll become upright individuals. And the best way to be able to follow what your conscience says is to have a very strong relationship with the Almighty. And the best way to have that relationship is through the prayer and through the Quran. I'm sure your teachers and your instructors must have already told you this, that the best way to talk to God, the best way to experience God, the best way to communicate to God is through the prayer, especially the night prayer, the tahajjud prayer. If every once in a while, maybe once in a month or twice in a month or maybe once a week, if you're able to get up before Fajr, or I'm sure you're already awake at that time, as things stand at the moment, just offer that tahajjud prayer if you can, because that is the time when we have been told by the Almighty that He is nearest to us. His blessings are nearest to us, and He tells us and He asks us, is there anyone there who wants my blessings and mercy and who wants your prayers to be accepted? So this is the best time. And the second thing is that if you are able to understand and read and ponder and of course adopt the Quran as a way of life, then this is how you'll become strong individuals. Your conscience will be vibrant. It will not be a dead conscience. This conscience will always help you in finding out what the right is and what the wrong is, and it will not err at all. So this is an inbuilt mechanism, and I request you that please do start your life, end your life, daily routine in life when you go off to bed by analyzing whatever you did during the day in the light of your conscience. Hold yourself accountable every day when you go to bed, before shutting your eyes and before going off to sleep. Ask yourself, what are the things that you did wrong? Ask yourself, what are the things that you did right? And perhaps you would like to improve the next day. Let me give you an example of a very famous scientist, a polymath, Benjamin Franklin. I often give this example to a lot of students. Now, it is said that he made a small chart in his life, and his purpose was to become a morally excellent person. He wanted to excel in morals. And so what he did was he wrote 12 or 13 values on the left column of a page, like, for example, sympathy, compassion, selflessness, kindness, all 12 or 13 famous values on one side of his notebook. And on the horizontal side on the top, he wrote the days of the week by saying Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all the way to Sunday. And then, of course, there was in between the crosses in which her whole section would be dedicated to a day and a particular value. So he said that my target would be that whenever I would do something against a basic value, I would put a black dot in that hole. If, for example, on Wednesday, if I did something which was against compassion, I'll put a black dot on that vertical column in Wednesday and the horizontal column in that particular value. And that black dot would indicate that I've done one thing which is against that particular value. And similarly, he would arrange those 13 compassionate values, and then he would fill each of those boxes with dots. And he said that my target would be that there would be a certain week. I wish that there is a certain week in which the whole page is blank. There are no black dots, signaling that I did nothing wrong regarding those certain values in 7 days of the week. And you know what he said? He said I never achieved that blank page, because being a human being, I reduced the number of dots over a period of time, and I tried my best, but it never happened in the long span of my life that I was able to achieve a totally blank page. So I would suggest that if you want to become morally excellent individuals, we want to become people who are going to become high achievers as responsible, moral, and upright individuals, maybe you can also start this Benjamin Franklin chart in which you can jot down. I can give you those values. You can jot down those values, and your teacher and instructor might help you in filling that. And that will, of course, the target would, before me and you and everyone else, would be to have a blank page every once in a while. But if that doesn't happen, even if you have a few dots, then too, this is a big achievement. So my fourth request to you is that you must be conscientious people. You must pay heed to the calls of your conscience, and the best way to do so is to have a strong relationship with the Almighty through His book, and through the prayer that we offer to Him, and through this method which I just outlined, which I read recently as being authored by one of the famous all-time geniuses, Benjamin Franklin. The next point that I'd like to express to you vis-a-vis the request that I'm making in line is that it's of paramount importance that you guard your gaze from taking undue liberty. You know what? The evil that starts in us and if it continues outward, it starts with the heart. And you know what? Our eyes are the windows to our heart. If we try to purify our eyes, if we try not to allow them to take liberty, we will become pure individuals. We will become individuals who take care of our inner selves, because you see, the Almighty has said the hereafter or paradise will be the place of those people who have purified themselves, which in our own Islamic terms or the Quranic terms is called tazkiyah. Tazkiyah means self-purification, inner purification. So if you have inner purification, if you have self-purification, you become entitled to the eternal kingdom of heaven in the hereafter. And this can happen. The starting point of this is that you guard your eyes. I do remember this saying of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he has said that a person who commits who lets his eyes take liberty, by oogling at the opposite gender and staring at the physical attributes of the opposite gender, he or she has already committed adultery of the eyes. And a very similar thing has been said by the Prophet Jesus sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well in the Bible, when he says that a person who looks with lust at a woman or vice versa, he or she has already committed the adultery of the eyes. So the next request, my dear young participants and young individuals and young adults, is that try as far as you can to become pure individuals. Try as far as you can to guard your eyes, to restrain your eyes. And each one of us knows, each one of us who is an adult person knows what exceeding the limits of the eyes is. We must look at the opposite gender the way we look at our own brothers and sisters, which is called modesty and chastity. I'll use the Arabic word of haya. Haya means something which restrains you from taking undue liberty. So I think this is the starting point, and if you're able to guard your gaze, if you're able to restrain your gaze, I can assure you that this will be the starting point of becoming righteous, pious, and upright individuals. The next point of view, my dear young participants, that I'd like to make here is that as young participants, I'm sure since the place that you're living in already has these traditions, but just to recapitulate, I'd like to tell you that as individuals of a society, of a country, we are duty bound to follow the laws of the country that we live in. We must follow the law in letter and in spirit. If you are living in a Muslim country, you must follow the law of the land as far as you can. Similarly, if you're living in a Western country, you're living in the United States or the United Kingdom or Australia or anywhere else in the world, you must abide by the laws of that country. It is your religious duty. Let me tell you, it's not just your civic duty, it's your religious duty. The Quran tells us to abide by the laws, because when you are part of or you're a citizen of a country, you are in fact bound in a vow, in a contract of citizenship to obey the laws of that country. So just a simple example of violation of such laws is that we use our cell phones while we are driving. We use our cell phones while even we text message each other while we are driving. This is just a small thing to point out. Otherwise, there are very other grave violations as well that we do. But just remember that not only when you text message or you listen to the phone while driving, or you hear others, or if you're not in the driving age as yet, and in future you're going to become one of the people who are going to drive, then please bear in mind that you must follow the road limits, you must follow the traffic rules, you must follow everything that your country laws say, because this is what a responsible, dutiful citizen is, and your own religion tells you that you have to follow the law of the land. The next request, my dear participants, that I'd like to make is that as far as understanding your religion is concerned, you must not take your religion to be something of a dogma. When I say this, I mean that you should question each and every directive that your parents or your teachers or your colleagues tell you to adopt as far as religion is concerned. What I mean here is that you must understand why you're doing certain acts of religion. For example, if someone asks you, why do you fast? Why do you pray? Why do you slaughter an animal? Why do you go for Hajj? You must be in a position to understand why this is so. Because unless you understand why you're doing a certain act of religion, you'll not be able to enjoy that act. You'll not be able to relish and cherish it. You'll just think it to be a directive, an imperative from God. You see, what God has told us is so close to our own human nature that if you start understanding the reason why God has given us certain directives, and these reasons have been explained by the Quran itself and by our Prophet and even by many wise people, you'll really enjoy following whatever you're being told to. Just let me give you a small example. Zabiha meat or halal meat is one of the most important issues which our Western children face when they live there. Now, the question is that one of the requisites of Zabiha meat is that it should be slaughtered, or the animal should be slaughtered in the name of God. And when you say that the animal has to be slaughtered in the name of God, it means that you must say Bismillahi Allahu Akbar. This is what we call takbir. Bismillahi Allahu Akbar, which means in the name of God, who is the greatest. So this is the sanction that we have from the Almighty to slaughter the animal. Now the question is that why is it so important to have halal meat, to have zabiha meat, when we know that living in the West, it's not all that easy to have halal meat. So why does Islam insist that we have to have halal meat? So now one way to understand this is how it has been understood by some of the famous scholars of yesteryears and also of current times. And they explain this by saying that, you see, human life is of utmost importance. Human life, I'm talking about human life. You just cannot take human life in any form. Moreover, even animal life is sacred. You cannot take animal life unless you say Bismillah Allahu Akbar, which is God's permission to you to use the meat of that animal for your own benefit. So when you say Bismillah Allahu Akbar, you actually make that slaughter halal, zabiyah halal, because you are using the sanction of God to take a life. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I would have been a perfect vegetarian had I not been told by the Almighty that when I'm taking a life, I'm taking it on His authority, because of His permission. Otherwise, I would have been a vegetarian. So you need to understand that when we take an animal's life, and that animal's life is not taken by slaughtering that animal in the name of God, then we are actually taking a life which we have no authority to take. So when we slaughter an animal by saying Bismillah Allahu Akbar, we are actually slaughtering it on the permission of God. So that is what authorizes us to take that animal's life. So this is one explanation that has been given in this regard, and it is very convincing to me as well, that why is it important to eat zabiha meat? Because zabiha meat is the meat on which the name of God is taken. His permission is given. He has granted us the permission to use the meat or to eat the meat of that animal. If we don't take God's name, then we are killing an animal which we have no right to. So this and so on and so forth. This is just one example that I gave. There are several other examples which I can give, and I think my request to you would be to question and really go to the depth and root of each questions of each issue that you are taught in the class, as well as in your own homes. Whenever an issue comes to your discussion table between your parents or between your colleagues or between your class fellows, that go to the depth, because you'll find out that there are not many issues that needs that much research. It's just a handful of issues, maybe 20 or 25, which keep coming up. They keep facing us as questions that all of us face. And lastly, my dear young participants, this is my last request to you, and after that we can open the forum and you can ask your questions. The last request to you, or last perhaps guidance that I'd like to give in my humble capacity, is that while living in the West, one of the biggest issues that you might be facing, one of the biggest problems, if I may call them a problem, that you might be facing is that you are surrounded by the LGBTQ community, and living in the West, you have colleagues there, you have class fellows there, you have teachers there, you have lesbian and gay rights groups who every now and then, as activists, they call upon their rights to be fulfilled. So the one big question is that how should Muslims living in the West deal with the LGBTQ community? Now, my humble suggestion to you in this regard is that you treat them as individuals, as any other individual that you might come into contact with. You can make friends with them, you can talk to them the way you talk to others, without discussing their sexual orientation, of course, because this is something which is always a person's own individual choice. If he has made a wrong orientation choice, it's up to him or her. Let this be between him or her and his or her God. Do not judge people if whatever they are. You judge people by other phenomena, by other traits. For example, you judge people by their honesty. You judge people by how truthful they are. You judge people by how righteous they are, how pious they are. I have seen gays and lesbians who may be having this deviant sexual orientation, but they are very good, pious individuals, human beings, and Muslims. So, if they have a deviant sexual orientation, let this be something between him or her and the Almighty. Ours is not to make fun of them or ridicule them or maybe criticize them or even isolate ourselves from them. We should deal or behave very normally with them the way we do with any other orientation, and not bring up this question with them unless they bring it up and you'd like to express your own view. Otherwise, don't judge them. Let their matter be judged by the Almighty. Of course, we would not agree with their orientation, but again, we would not condemn them for this, because maybe this condemnation is something which will take them even farther away. What best we can do is that if this topic is brought up by them, we can discuss how our own point of view is in this regard, and we say that we abide by our own point of view, but we respect the other person's point of view, and at the same time we give the other person, the leverage and the latitude to criticize us, and he should or she should give us the leverage and the latitude to criticize him or herself without actually judging an individual. And I would say that this is something which will increase in the near future. It's going to happen. I know Muslims who are gay. I know Muslims who are lesbians. I know there is a mosque in New Jersey. There is a mosque in Montreal, which is called a gay mosque, in which the imam is gay, and Muslims who are gay are encouraged to offer the prayer there. So these things are going to prop up. They're going to increase in the near future. The proper way is not to shun them. The proper way is not to isolate yourself from them, but the proper way is to behave normally with them and try your best to express your own opinion whenever it comes up. I do remember Jesus once saying in the New Testament, in the Gospel of Matthew, when someone asked him that you are sitting beside these sinners, and he said, "I have not been sent to the righteous, because they're already there. They're already righteous. I have been sent to the sinners, and I'd like to spend my time with them." So I'm not saying that we are Jesus or the other people are exact sinners, but the fact is that we must understand that if we think that there are people who are doing something wrong, then the right method is not to evade them or to ignore them or to shun them, but the right way is to make friends with them, regard them to be human beings, also applaud and laud whatever the good facets of personality they have. And if this orientation issue does come up, then of course you can express your own opinion, and that is the end of that. So these were some of the requests, my dear young participants, I wanted to make. I just want to recap. The first thing that I told you, that is that you must become people who must have a mission in life. You must set yourself a target in life, which should be commensurate in proportion to the aptitude that you have. The second thing I requested to you was to become responsible citizens of your society. The third was to be people who organize their time, who do not waste time. The fourth was that you must lend your ears to the calls of your conscience. The fifth was that you must guard your gaze from taking undue liberty. The sixth was that you must always be individuals who take pride in helping out others. And the seventh was that if you are interacting with the LGBT community, then do not become individuals who hate these people. Instead of hating them, instead of shunning them, love them. Love them for their good habits. You may have the opportunity to come closer to them and maybe even change them, but then that is all that is expected from you. Now I'll request you that if you have any questions, I had some other points in mind as well, but I think that we have probably consumed some of the time that was allotted to us. So if you have questions, and I'm sure you must be having questions on whatever I've said, I'll be very glad to answer them. Thank you. Hello.
your break, so you can ask your questions one by one. Arsalan, you can go first, and then Rabia, you can answer.
Okay, so at the beginning of the lecture, you talked about managing your time well and making sure that anytime you have.
Arsalan, can you speak a little louder, please?
How can yeah, sure. So is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. So at the beginning of the lecture, you were talking about managing your time well, and that every moment of your time shouldn't be going to waste, but rather towards being productive.
Mm-hmm.
So how can someone differentiate between like what's an activity that they're doing that's productive, or what's something that's more detrimental to them?
I think the best judge is your own mind. Every person knows an activity in which he's wasting time, he's procrastinating, and if he is doing something productive. I think this is a common sense question. If you just ask yourself, whatever I'm doing, is it going to give me some benefit or others some benefit? If the answer is yes, then you should do that activity. My concern is that you should not kill time. You should not waste time. You should not just sit idle. You should have something or the other that you must do. If you're relaxing, that's also an activity. Entertainment is also an activity. Going for sports, studying, everything has to fall in its place. The only thing is that when you're sitting idle, you have nothing to do. You're just browsing through the internet maybe, or just wasting or killing time. That should be, I know it's very difficult. I know that maybe it's almost next to impossible, but our target should be as much as possible to utilize every second or every minute of our life for some activity or the other, which is either giving us benefit or others benefit. And the best way to judge that is just ask yourself that what I'm doing now, is it giving me some benefit? Is it giving my society or my class fellows or my friends any benefit? And if the answer is yes, then of course you can do that activity.
Thank you.
I also had a question. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. And this is?
You mentioned, this is Rabia.
Okay, Rabia, go ahead.
So you mentioned the LGBTQ community, and to treat them as individuals, and that whatever they're doing is between them and God.
Mm-hmm.
So recently, being able to marry and another gay person has been made legal in the United States. And then around that time, I think the question came up was if we were given the choice to vote, like if we held a seat influence in the government or something, what would we have voted for? Would we have voted to give them the choice to marry, for gay marriage to be allowed, or would we have voted no, you don't have a choice?
Well, as far as Muslims are concerned, we of course do believe that marriage has to be amongst the opposite genders. But if you ask me that should we allow this choice to others, obviously we should, because you see, we are not going to force others to our own opinion. And if someone believes that gay marriage or lesbian marriage is something which they would like to do, fair enough, it's their own decision. But as far as Muslims are concerned, they themselves, of course, should be bound by the laws and by the adjudications of their own religion. But you see, many individuals in the West, they don't ask religion at all. Even people who are gay and or lesbian, they might be very, very religious, and some of them are not religious, and they don't ask religion. But the question is, and the basic issue is that this is one of their rights. This is one of a human right, I would say, to determine their own orientation. If they think that they have a different orientation, it's up to them. We don't agree, of course, and we agree to disagree. But the fact is that each person has been given this free will by the. I'm no one to clamp down on the freedom which the Almighty has given a person. We are talking about lesbians and we're talking about gays. I hope you know what necrophiles are. I hope you know what pedophiles are. So even necrophiliacs and pedophiliacs, they exist in a society, and God has given them the latitude. Of course, they are doing extremely wrong, whatever they are doing, but when this freedom of choice has been given by the Almighty to an individual to act upon whatever he thinks or she thinks to be right and wrong, then this is a God-given choice. And we might not agree to a person's choice. We might disagree with him and can strongly express our disagreement, but we cannot disallow other people to have their own opinion. This is my humble view.
Okay, thank you.
Nania, do you have a question?
I was going to ask them similar to Rabia's, but you answered it.
Okay. I think let me just reiterate one of the right, Rabia, you're saying something?
No, go ahead.
Well, I said that the most important point that I would like to perhaps reiterate is that as individuals, do please set yourself a mission in life, a target in life. Because you see, unless you have a mission in life, unless you have a target in life, you'll end up individuals who might waste a lot of talent that you have. You might be having a lot of ability which the Almighty has blessed you internally and innately, but by not realizing that, by not discovering at the right time, and I'm sure as young adults, all of you have a whole life to go, and if you've already discovered your passion and your potential, it's very good. However, if it has not happened as yet, then please do take up some of our aptitude quizzes or some of the questionnaires that we have developed at Al-Mawrid, so that you're able to harness your energies and are able to contribute to the society as much as you can, and make yourselves individuals who have a purpose and an objective in life. This will also help you in not wasting time. So if you have a purpose in life, if you have an objective in life, you'll always be focused. You'll always concentrate on the target that you fixed for yourself.
Anybody else has any questions?
I had a question.
Please go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Because like some people, is it wrong to like not have a goal in life kind of thing? Like, it's not like wasting time, but not using your time, but trying to find something to use your time, like a job. Like a lot of people use their time to get a job, but if they don't have like a goal, what do you do then?
Well, you see, the reason that you don't have a goal is that you've not thought about this whole issue. Generally, this is what I think. But of course, it's okay if you don't have a goal. I'm not saying it's a sin or something bad. I'm only saying that this will still maybe you'll still become a successful individual, but the ability that you have within yourself can be polished to such enormous proportions that you can really become a very high achiever in this life. Remember what Einstein said. He said that genius is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration, which means that if you have just 1% gift from God, you can really polish it to achieve a whole new world, because 99% of that genius is through hard work that you achieve it. So it's okay if you don't do so, but if you can do so, it'll be a big plus in your life. You'll become a very high achiever. You'll become a person who climbs the top of the ladder in the society. You'll become a person who'll be remembered even when he goes away or she goes away from this world. You'll become a person who'll make a difference in the society. So if you have this passion in yourself, if you have this burning desire in yourself that I'm going to make a difference in the society that I'm living, it's going to really help you. And it's like a positive thing. But if you don't do it, okay, fine, still you're going to perhaps end up as a successful person, but that success would be much less than you could have achieved had you lent your ears to the inner potentials that you have.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Alina, Ali? Arsalan, any more questions?
You don't have to be shy. Anything that comes to your mind, any question, it could be any question, just anything. You see, one thing that I learned in my life is that the best way to gain knowledge is not to be shy in asking questions, because at times each one of us has the same question in our hearts, and we are feeling shy at the fact that maybe others will make fun of this such a basic question that we are asking. I can tell you a lot of doors of knowledge open only if you ask questions, and asking a question is the best way to go ahead in life. And don't be shy. Come up with anything that you have in mind.
I have a question.
Please go ahead.
So this isn't really related to what you said. It's a little off topic. But I have this friend who's she's not Muslim. Yeah, she's very interested in Islam, and she comes to a lot of I guess Islam related events with me, and then I go with her to I don't not go with her, but we also do Islam related and just regular, just hanging out. And whenever we're just hanging out, she doesn't care that I just step out to pray or anything, or sometimes she even reminds me. But I don't know, because I really want her to get more interested in Islam, but also I've never ever asked her to be more interested, because obviously you're not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be natural. But I don't know if there's a way, because that's what I want, but obviously I can't say it.
Right. I think you're doing the best that you should be doing, because you see, changing one's religion or adopting a new viewpoint is something which best should be left to the individual. If she has questions, if she has some curiosity, she'll come up herself and ask those questions. But if they are not there, then just patiently wait, because we're not going to push people. We should not force people. We should not excite them, because you see, changing a whole point of view, and especially which relates to religion, is a very big thing in life. You're actually changing your whole viewpoint. You're going to change your whole family setup as well, if that is the case. So this should happen very gradually. It should be a very well thought of thing. It should be a very intellectual thing. It should not be hurried into. It should, all the time that is needed to elapse on it should elapse, so that a person is able to deeply understand what he or she is going to do when she changes her religion. So I think the best way is that if she stays with you, if she goes out with you, she looks at you, she sees what you're doing, that is the best preaching that you can do. And when the time comes, let her herself come forward to you or to others that she wants to change her religion. And if that is not the case, then it's not feasible to escalate or increase the speed of this process, because it should take its natural time. Any unnatural means of pushing it or exciting the whole process might be counterproductive. Let this be a journey that she is going through, and if she reaches the destination, you can of course pray for that. The biggest thing that you can pray for such a person is that God show her the right path, God show her the right light, guide her. That is the best thing that you can do. But other than that, I think whatever you're doing is the best thing, is the best course that one should adopt in this particular case.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question.
Yeah, please go ahead, Arsalan.
So, on the point of tolerance and acceptance for others, what about like people who are atheists?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of like tolerance should be given towards them if they're like outright against other religions? I mean, what kind of efforts can be made to people like this who are not willing to accept any sort of message from others about religion?
I think treat them as individuals who have a point of view. If they don't believe in God, if they are averse to religion, if you are able to talk to them, because I have a lot of experience with talking to such people, there is always something which is of the nature of a misconception or a misperception vis-a-vis religion. So I think you should fully tolerate them. You should make friends with them. You should go out with them, hang out with them, whatever, just as they are normal individuals. But if there comes up a discussion in which they'd like to express their view on atheism, I can tell you out of my own experience of 20 more years, that more often than not, it is because a particular directive of religion has either not been properly communicated to them or they have misunderstood them. Let me just give you an example so that you can understand that how atheism or how things that are not properly communicated can get to their necks. So this incident of Abraham's sacrifice, when he slaughtered his son, or intended to slaughter his son for the pleasure of God, to seek His pleasure. We know our religious tradition, although there's a difference of opinion regarding who the son was whom he sacrificed. The Torah or the Old Testament or the Jews say that it was Isaac, and the Quran and the Muslims say that he was Ishmael. So as far as the son is concerned, there might be a difference of opinion, but the crux of the matter is that he went about sacrificing or slaughtering his son at the Almighty's behest. So one of the questions that atheists often ask is that how come God is so cruel, or supposedly so cruel, that He asks for the sacrifice of a child who was born to a ripe old man at the ripe old age of 86. We know that Abraham was 86 when Ishmael was born and Isaac were born later on. So he was almost 100 years old when Isaac was born. So the question that they ask is, how come that the Almighty has become so cruel? How can we imagine a God to be so cruel, who is not even compassionate enough to allow a boy who has just been born to live? And then again they have these questions, for example, that how come that there is a God if we have so much oppression, so much injustice, so much bad blood in our whole society? People are killing each other. There are cyclones, there are tornadoes, there are earthquakes, or everything which is destroying others. We have people who are living below the poverty line, and there's so many other questions that come to their mind. So the problem is that instead of shunning them, as I said with the LGBT community, you must try to understand what has made them averse to religion. And you'll find more often than not that either it is the general oppression that we find in this world, in which good people are often relegated back to these lower echelons of society. We find evil people flourishing in the world. We find so many disasters making people die. We find children being crushed to death. We find small girls being raped. So basically it is what's going on in this world which has made them averse, or they have made them atheists. So as I said, that instead of shunning them or instead of not making friends with them, you find out what has made them atheists. And if you're not able to answer them yourselves, you can look for these answers, discuss them with your teachers and professors, they'll tell you. But the bottom line is that no person in this world should be of such that we treat him as a person who is an outcast, someone of the nature of an outcast. Each individual, I even tell my students and my colleagues and the people I meet, that there are people who make fun of the Prophet. There are people who make fun of other revered personalities. Of course, that is not something which is in line with respect. This is something which is very grave and very bad. But at the same time, we need to understand what is the problem with them. For example, let me tell you that the gravest objection that they have on the Prophet of Islam and many other prophets of God, atheists have, is that, for example, he married someone who was 6 years old. Aisha radiallahu anha was 6 years old, or the fact that there are other things in his life which to them do not make sense. So my submission is that whether they are atheists, whether they are people who make fun of you, whether they are people who have a different view, try to understand the crux of the matter. Go to the bottom of the whole issue. Try to understand why is it that it is taking them away from Islam or away from any religion, and you'll find out there is a reason. And the best way to help them is to address that reason, to understand that reason, and if the need arises, if the opportunity knocks at your doors, discuss that reason with them. So in a nutshell, no person at all is worthy of being dismissed or treated as an outcast. Every person is a human being. Every person is a respectable human being to us. We don't know the problems that he is facing. We don't know why he is the way he is. Every person has his own issues, and the best way to deal with these issues is not to go away from them or dismiss them, but to be in the thick of things and to interact with them, find out the reason, discuss the reason, and then leave the other person with his own choice.
Okay, thank you.
We have 10 more minutes to go, so any final quick questions, or we could just end if nobody has any more questions.
I wanted to ask, what were the 13 passionate values that you mentioned?
Well, I can send. They are, as far as I remember, there is a certain website which I can send to you, because that chart and those values have been drawn up in them. The ones that I do remember are compassion, sympathy, kindness, selflessness, humility, to become less arrogant, to have good civic sense, to be people who are caring individuals. So these basic human values, these values which all of us cherish so much, they are the ones. And we can add to those 13, we can subtract some of them. But I think that if you are able to follow that chart or make that chart for your own daily routine, and you can take up either of those, all of those, maybe add some, maybe subtract some. But I really think that if you are able to do this, this will really help you in becoming better individuals.
Okay, thank you.
I think this was it from the student side and their questions. Thank you very much for taking out the time for this, Shehzad bhai. It was a wonderful lecture, and I'm sure they enjoyed it a lot. Their questions showed that it was really interesting for them. So thank you very much, and thank you all of you for joining. Sorry about the trouble that happened earlier with the webinar. I'll inform you about the next lecture and the timings as well after I verify that there are no more clashes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the session.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Take care. Goodbye. Khuda Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum.